Welcome, dear listeners, to episode 215 of The Reformed Gamers, the show about theology, video games, and becoming Elden Lords. I'm your host, Logan, and joining me today, as you can see, is Greg. Do I call you Greg or Regenerated, man?
Call me Greg. Please call me Greg.
So you want me to call you Regenerated the whole episode? You sure Regenerated? You're
preferably
good.
Not.
Okay.
Do the whole screen tag thing. It's not me, man.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Well, you see, we've got Greg here and Pastor Doostyn returning, who you probably, I don't know how I'm going to edit this for the video version of this, but you might see Pastor Doostyn. You might see Kenneth Copeland with a kind of like flappy mouth thing, like a puppet. You never know. You'll wait and see how it looks.
That's what I get for not having a camera tonight. I'm at Logan's mercy.
Yep. My editing mercy.
The place you ever want to be.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But dear listeners, in case you missed it, we are talking about Elden Ring. I teased this out on Twitter a while back about how this game is so big. I need to bring on two guests for this game here, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But before we get into it, y'all are familiar with Pastor Doostyn, but Greg might be a bit of a new face to you. So Greg, I'm going to kick it to you first, man, and just kind of introduce yourself to the listeners, kind of who you are, what you do, and some of the content that you produce, and go from there.
Yeah, thanks, man. My name's Greg Kite. I'm an elder at Covenant Baptist Church in Houston, Texas, and a husband to a beautiful wife, Libby, and my 4 kids. So that's my first and primary ministry. Obviously, elder at my church, like I said. So I do a lot of work there in various ways. But then sort of, I guess, how I got to know everybody here started off through GMA connections and things like that, and through Doostyn, obviously. But then, connected with Logan after that. And we've sort of, gotten to know each other a lot better over the course of time. And so, also the course of our hobbies, I would say. I've started a podcast. Actually, Logan, you were very helpful in the beginning of that. Whenever I was first starting things off, I remember asking you a couple of questions, and you really made it a lot easier for me to want to jump in. And so I have my own little podcast called Regener8d Radio that I do generally weekly, although I'm about to start a season. I'm in between seasons. I do 8 to 10 seasons or episodes in a season, and then I stop for a little bit. But in that podcast, I bring on professors and theologians and pastors who know a lot about a particular topic that's piqued my interest at any given time, and I bring them on, and we have an interview, and we chat about that, whatever that theological doctrine is, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's been something that's been very encouraged by, and people have been giving me a lot of encouragement with it lately, and I'm very appreciative of that as well. But I'm about ready to take a little bit of a break, so you won't see any content on there for a while, but definitely come and follow if you're into that kind of thing. And I hope that you would be.
Yeah, definitely. Right on, man. And dear listeners, as always, in case you are new, links to everything that we talk about on this episode will be in your show notes. So just pull up your podcast app, or if you're on YouTube, pull out the description box, and links to everything will be in there, including Greg's channel, and also links to Doostyn's channel as well, who kind of doesn't need any introduction at this point. He's been on like 3 or 4 episodes, but just in the rare occurrence that you are new and you have no idea who Pastor Doostyn is, Doostyn, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself as well.
So yeah, if I haven't got to meet you yet, go listen to those previous episodes of the podcast. What are you doing? Come on. We've talked about Doom. We've talked about all sorts of stuff. It's been great. But yeah, if I haven't got to meet you, my name's Pastor Doostyn. Here's my little intro that, Greg could also quote. I would say, hi, my name's Pastor Doostyn. I'm a real pastor who plays Pokemon, Doom, and everything in between, all with the intention of sharing God's love with the gaming world, because I believe God loves gamers, and so do I. Am I breaking down again or something?
No, I'm laughing because I watched Greg literally mouth that entire thing as you said it.
Oh, just put my video over Doostyn. That's fun.
There you go.
That's going to be a fun edit for Twitter.
Dude, because I literally wrote that out as a mission statement for myself before I ever started streaming. And so I say it often, not only to introduce new people to the content and the stream and whatever, but also to keep me grounded in my purpose in being there. But yeah, so I stream live on Twitch. Like I said, I play Pokemon, Doom, and everything in between. I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately.
Yes.
And unfortunately, some Subnautica thrown in there as a punishment for me. But chat loves to watch me squirm on that. But no, it's been incredible. In fact, today was a really special stream. We've had a goal for the past a little over 2 years to read the entire Bible live on stream, like every single word. And today we finished. We finished the Bible today.
That's awesome.
Which blows my mind. But yeah, we finished with the Gospel of John today, and we celebrated. It was a huge day. But I'm happy to be back on here. Excited about tonight's show.
Yeah, man, that's pretty timely too, considering that, when we're recording this, April 14th, this is the weekend going into Easter. So that's kind of a cool time to end that journey.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Because today we read John 12 through 21. And I mean, so we covered that whole, Passion Week, all the conversations with the disciples there in that kind of intimate setting, the cross, the resurrection, everything. And had a lot of good conversations about that. Got to share the gospel a lot today. And it was great.
Right on, man. It's always good. It's always good to hear. Dear listeners, again, like I said, links to everything, including these two's channels and content and all that stuff and ways to connect with them online will be in your show notes. So be sure to check those out. Other fun things that'll be in your show notes is the secret links for this episode. I'm not going to tell you what they are because then they wouldn't be secret. So be sure to check out those links down there and enjoy what's down there. But tread carefully. I'm just kidding. There's nothing scary down there. You'll be fine. But let's go ahead and get into the show proper with a little bit of what have we been playing. And Greg, since you are brand new to the show, I'm going to kick it over to you first, man. What have you been playing?
Elden Ring, yeah.
We've basically been playing Elden Ring, let's be honest.
a lot of Elden Ring.
There are no other games that exist right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have been playing a lot of Elden Ring. Actually, not as much. I shouldn't say that because it's not been the primary game that I've been playing, which is surprising. But I've definitely played a lot of Elden Ring lately as something that I'm excited to finish. I'm getting pretty close, I think. I don't know. I've been told otherwise, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But definitely have just really been taking my time and enjoying the journey and really exploring and having a lot of fun with that game. So, I'm sure we'll get more into that later, so I'll leave that one there. The other games that I've been playing, though, are Valorant. It's kind of my main competitive game right now after Halo kind of let me down a little bit. Back over into Valorant with some friends, and we tend to play a match every couple of nights. We'll play 1 or 2 matches and, trying to rank up, and that's an absolute nightmare, but, and we have a lot of fun with the game, and definitely learning and trying to get better at it is actually starting to appeal to me. For a long time, it was not. It was like, I'm just bad at this and I'm never going to get better and it's not fun. So I would just kick it away after, a week of kind of binging it. And finally, I think I've hit a stride where I'm like, I actually have some ideas on how I can improve and to get better. And I think it's visible. So seeing that's kind of cool. Competitive games are hit or miss for a lot of people. And I enjoy them. But it takes me feeling like I can actually move forward and progress in my skills. So that's finally coming around. So I'm playing a lot of Valorant. And then the last game that I've been playing a little bit of that I really want to dive back into, but again, Elden Ring, is Triangle Strategy, which I picked it up on the Switch before I went on a trip with my family. And I was playing that, at nights in the hotel whenever we're all sharing a room. And I just had to put some headphones in and listen. What a great game to sit and let everyone sleep around you and just make little tactical decisions about where you get you guys to go. I'm a big fan of tactical RPGs. Fire Emblem, probably my favorite. In fact, my text message just went off and it was a Fire Emblem ringtone.
Nice.
As I said, really one of my favorite franchises, and XCOM and Tactics Ogre and all those kinds of things have really stuck with me for a long time. And so Triangle Strategy, having those beautiful 2D HD graphics and that Octopath style, Traveler style, I just love that style. Like, what a beautiful graphic!
It's beautiful,
and it works so well for the kind of grid-based isometric combat. And so I really enjoyed that as well. The story is really engaging. I'm a sucker for a good fantasy story that's just like classic fantasy, you know, with
Right.
political intrigue and all the different things that you can do. And there's a lot of that in Triangle Strategy. So a game that I highly recommend if you're into that kind of game. But I know that that's not for everyone. In fact, most people I've talked to, they either love strategy or tactical RPGs like that, or they hate them. So fair enough either way. But if you are somewhat into those games, gotta recommend it. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely. And fun fact about, I almost said Elden Ring, but no, fun fact about Triangle Strategy is actually, because I'm still playing the demo here and there on the Switch. So if anyone is interested, that demo is out there on the Switch. So you can definitely pick that up and give it a go and see if it's right for you. Definitely agree. It is a gorgeous looking game. I love those visuals. It looks super, super good. But speaking of things that look super good, Doostyn, what have you been playing, man?
Can't wait to see the edit that happens right there.
It'll be you with a big brain from your
There's
streams.
plenty of weird images of me to choose from. Yeah, so what have I been playing? Well, I mean, Elden Ring. I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring too. It's a massive game that takes a lot of time. And anytime I'm playing it on stream, people come by and they say, man, why didn't you put more hours into this thing? So, when am I supposed to do it? Like, I just stay up till 4 a.m. and wake up at 6? What am I supposed to do?
That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do, Doostyn.
Apparently, to become an Elden Lord, I have to sacrifice sleep. It's a requirement.
If you want to get good, you just have to sacrifice sleep.
That's one of many things the game doesn't tell you, but that's the reality. No, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring, doing it on stream. On stream, I've been trying to really tackle some of the bigger things, some of the story stuff, bosses, things like that. And then when I can find some time off stream in the evenings or something, I'll grind some. I'll try to find some new weapons and, farm some runes, whatever. Do that, the boring stuff off stream as much as I can so that on stream we can focus on some of those big fights. So I've been playing that. Looking forward to something that I'll finally be able to play that I have dreamt of playing. I'll be able to start next week, which is ray traced old school Doom. And I am so excited for it. It just came out in only one specific Doom engine in PR Boom. You can play the original 4 episodes of Doom in all its ray traced glory. And I've never been able to because I haven't had an RTX card, but mine shows up tomorrow. So super excited about that. One, I'll be able to not make my current GPU cry anymore with all the ridiculousness that happens on my stream. And 2, I'll be able to play ray traced Doom. So I'm looking forward to playing that. But the other thing I have been playing is I'm still to this day, like over a year later, trying to finish the last thing in Hollow Knight. There's only one thing left that I have not been able to accomplish, and that is Pantheon 5 with all 4 bindings on at the same time. It is an
you are
asinine challenge. It is insane. So, like, I've done all the bindings for all the Pantheons individually, including Pantheon 5. I've done each of the bindings. I got the Weathered Mask, did that. That's awesome. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. I've done it all. But I knew that there was one last challenge that I could opt to do, which is the Pantheon bindings with all, or the Pantheons with all bindings at the same time. So the first 4 were tough. They took a long time, especially Pantheon 3 because of the Collector, Sly, and Zote. Stupid Zote. But Pantheon 5, as y'all know, is a whole other animal. And I'm good. I'm smooth sailing up until Collector. On Pantheon 5, where he has the, instead of normal aspids, he has primal aspids. And you can't one-shot any of his things with all the bindings on. So it becomes chaos real fast. And I mean, I'll be stocked up going into that with Lifeblood. It doesn't matter. Once I get to Collector, I'm usually done. I've gotten through him a couple times, but I know I still have, Markoth. I still have Zote. I still have all those things. Nightmare King Grim, Pure Vessel. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am determined to eventually conquer that mountain.
Right on, man. Dude, that is... Wow. Wow. I mean, I've got no words for that.
I love Hollow Knight. I got Pastor. I'll take a little credit for that. I got PastorDoostyn in to Hollow Knight, and I've gotten to Absolute Radiance one time. So I'm props to you, dude.
I haven't gotten anywhere near it because I watched.
Yeah, I finally beat Absolute Radiance on Radiant.
Oh wow, dude! I'll just watch you do this, man. The stuff I've seen you do before, I'm like, I'm not touching this, man. I'll play Sekiro, I'll platinum that, but it's like I'm not gonna touch the stuff that Doostyn's doing in this game.
Right, and see, that's the whole thing. Going into Elden Ring, everyone was like, "Oh no, you got Hollow Knight down, you'll be fine." No, it's a whole other animal. It's a completely different thing. I don't know why anyone said that.
Third dimension.
But here we are.
So, yeah, it's a third dimension now. It's way harder.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh man, that is wild. Well, dude, that's nuts. Dear listeners, again, if you want to go see him do some crazy things in Hollow Knight, definitely head over to his stream. Link will be in your show notes. I also, to no surprise, have been playing Elden Ring as well, but I'm going to save that for later. The only thing I really am going to talk about in this section is just giving a brief update about Horizon Forbidden West. I talked about in the last episode and mentioned how the controls were a mess. I was glitching through different areas. Like when I do a jump, it would just teleport me to another like ledge or something. It was weird. Just encountered a lot of issues, and it even baffled my wife. She actually came in one night and watched me play it, and she's like, this was not how it played at all for me. And I'm like, that's weird because this is the same system that you played it on. I don't understand why it's being like this for me. But since that episode, they released a patch that thankfully did clean up a lot of that stuff. But every now and then, I tweeted this out. There's a clip of me entering the city, does a cutscene where the camera angles were all messed up, and then all of a sudden I'm just underneath the game world and I can't leave and I'm stuck, and I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, what's going on? This game's been out for 2 months and you patch it, and now I'm like falling through the ground. So I don't know what's going on. And now Aloy does this weird thing where, like, if you're climbing in the game and you're trying to move like to the right, or it's typically to the right, and you're trying to grab a ledge, Aloy's body will flip to where she's facing the camera and she's like grabbing while inside the wall, and then she'll use her right hand to reach up and grab the ledge, and it resets the animation to where she's grabbing it. I'm like, what the heck, man? I feel like I'm playing a Bethesda game like Fallout or something. It's a weird game. I want to finish it. I want to keep playing it because the game is just gorgeous to look at, and it is fun to kind of fight 5 different robo dinos at one time. But it's still the same thing as last time. I'm still having a hard time getting into it. There are moments where the action set pieces are really cool, but for the most part, I'm just like, this isn't Elden Ring. This is kind of hard to get into, man. So I don't know if Elden Ring has just ruined me from playing other games or not, but
that's not uncommon, man. I remember going through the Dark Souls phase where just all video games were ruined because Dark Souls is too good. So I get it.
Yeah, that's what I fear I'm going into, which just means I'll be playing. Well, I mean, I think we need to do an episode on Sekiro. We need to do an episode on Dark Souls 3. So, I mean, dear listeners, I hope you like Soulsborne games because you're about to get a lot more episodes focused on them at this rate. But no, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, there's my Horizon update. Hopefully, by the time I record the next episode, I'll have gotten closer to the end of the game, or maybe I've abandoned it. I don't know. Wait and see. But with that being said, before we get into the topic of the show, a quick reminder to rate and review the podcast on your app of choice. If you're on YouTube, like the video, hit the subscribe button, all that fun stuff. At the time of this recording, we are closing in on 1,000 subscribers on the channel. So would greatly appreciate it if you would help us get there. That would be a fun little milestone to reach. Now, let's get into the topic of the show, talking about Elden Ring. Now, a few things I want to point out with this episode specifically is that spoilers, there's a wide array of definitions of what a spoiler even is. So if you just don't want any bit of this game spoiled, to like how the menus look, you're that sensitive to spoilers, this is your opportunity to pause and go play the game. As far as story spoilers, I I don't know how much we're going to get into. I only got 10 minutes into Vati Vidya's lore video, and that's only part one of however many he's doing. So there isn't really much to spoil there.
50.
So I'm just gonna throw this out here now. Just tread lightly. If you don't want anything spoiled, don't listen at this point. Before you go any further, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna warn you any more at this point. So we're just gonna dive right into Elden Ring. And kind of what we do here normally with these is we do a little bit of development history, and there's not a whole lot. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one here. I'm going to go over some basic stuff, kind of like how the game is published by or developed by From Software. It's published by Bandai Namco. The game was announced in E3 2019, originally for PC, PS4, Xbox One, later being revealed to come out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series S in January 21st, when the June 2021 trailer announced that the game was coming out in January, which of course it got pushed back by a month, but that's totally fine. Now, the game was not really co-directed. The game was directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, who's done all the other Dark Souls games, and they brought on George R.R. Martin to work on some of the lore, create some of the characters, and do some of that stuff. Thankfully, some of the more raunchy bits from his well-known Game of Thrones series didn't make it into the game, PTL for that. But the world is definitely fascinating, which we'll get into a little bit later. Now, what I personally found interesting about this game specifically is that work on it began in early 2017, shortly after the release of the Ring City DLC in Dark Souls 3. And this was developed alongside Sekiro. And I don't know, that just kind of blows my mind that they kind of divvied up resources of their studio, and this game came out to be as good as it is. Miyazaki did cite that Fumito Ueda's work, such as Shadow of the Colossus, was a huge influence on the game and helped him to create the game, drawing influence from the design and the freedom of play, while from also Breath of the Wild, which you can see from the game. Now, the game released to literally tens across the board, critical acclaim. It was game of the year. You thought it was the second coming of video games at this game's release, because it just was, it's so good. And despite some of the controversy surrounding the reviews, where some reviewers didn't even get to finish the game, they put 80 hours in and they weren't even close to finishing the game. They still put out a review out giving it a 10. So whether or not that taints your view or gives you some light level of skepticism on the game, I can just tell you that it's earned a 10. Is it a perfect game? No, but it's still a 10 in my opinion, which kind of leads into really our thoughts on the game. Now, before we get into that, something I'd like to do, and Greg, I want to thank you for reminding me to have this in here, is kind of talk about our previous experience with the Soulsborne genre as a whole, because I think when you talk about these kinds of games, you kind of have to touch on that a little bit and go over, is this your first foray into the series, or are you a veteran? Have you played all the other ones, and kind of go from there? Because that gives people an idea of your experience and your background and kind of where you're coming from with the game. So Greg, let's kick it to you, man. What's your experience been with the Soulsborne games?
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned previously, I hit a phase where Dark Souls was all I played for maybe a year and a half. Played through all three of them because Dark Souls 3 was about to come out, and so I tried Dark Souls 1. Actually left it alone for a little bit because I didn't quite jive with it. Then my friend got me a controller, and that changed a lot. So when I got a controller, started playing through Dark Souls 1. I really loved that. Played through Dark Souls 2 all the way. I played a lot with him on that one. My friend got me the controller. And then Dark Souls 3 came out, and I played that, and that just kind of solidified it. Like, that's the best Dark Souls game. And actually, that's something maybe we can touch on later. I still am not quite sure that Elden Ring has dethroned Dark Souls 3 to me.
Wow, okay.
And I know I'm very much in a minority opinion on that. But regardless, so I played Dark Souls 3 a lot. I went back and played through maybe 2 or 3 more runs on both. Well, on one. I think I played through Dark Souls 2 twice, which is a lot for Dark Souls 2, because not everyone's a big fan of Dark Souls 2. Anyway, but Dark Souls 3 I've probably played through 6 or 7 times. Different builds, different challenge runs. I've done bow only runs. I've done shield only runs. I've done. I finally committed and did a soul level 1 run where I didn't level up at all, and that was a lot of fun, but very difficult. I was stuck on the Soul of Cinder for months on that run for some reason. I couldn't do it. But I finally did just take the time to bang out that one too. So yeah, I've played a lot of Dark Souls. I did not play Bloodborne, so that's one of the few FromSoft games that I haven't played at all. And that's just because I've never had a PlayStation. I've never been a PlayStation guy. Actually, I don't have a console. I have the Switch, but I've played all those on PC, so I've not had the opportunity. I'm sure I would love Bloodborne from what I hear. It's very Dark Souls 3-ish, so I'm sure I would like it. But I'll get around to it at some point if the opportunity ever presents itself. But then Sekiro, I gave up on, honestly. So we talked about this, Logan. Like you said that Elden Ring, you had a moment where you were like frustrated because Elden Ring there was something that was kicking your butt, I think.
On top of the giants. I'll get into that later.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get there. So you had a moment where you were saying how frustrated you were at that point, and I was like, dude, you platted Sekiro. I can't do it. I've tried that game, and for some reason, it did not click, the whole parry system thing. So I'm going to try again once Elden Ring's done. But man, that first attempt was rough for me. So but yeah, I mean, as far as the other Soulsborne games go, I played a lot of them, and yeah, I guess that's most of my experience with it.
Right on. Doostyn, let's kick it over to you, man. What's your experience been like with these games?
Not pleasant.
That's right. You brought up Bloodborne earlier.
Yeah, I did. So in the pre-show, I was telling these guys that I've only ever played one FromSoft game or Soulsborne, whatever game, and it was Bloodborne. And I'm a pretty patient guy. All right, I can deal with a lot. I can take a lot. That's the only game in my life I've ever legitimately rage quit. I chunked my PS4 controller against the wall, and I was like, I am done with a stupid game. This is the most frustrating thing I've ever played. And again, I'm someone who will deal with Hollow Knight, Pantheon 5, all bindings. I can deal with that. I can't deal with the stupid dolphin. Yeah. But I could not get through. I just could not wrap my brain around how to play that game because I'm so like, I don't play a very wide range of games. Like most games where I see a lot of enemies, I go into Doom mode and I have to attack everything violently, aggressively, and clear all enemies. And if you try to play Bloodborne like that, you will throw your PlayStation controller against the wall. It was not pleasant. And it's sad because I really want to like Bloodborne. It's such a pretty game. I love Castlevania. It's one of my favorite series. And as soon as I started playing it, I was like, dude, this is what 3D Castlevania should be. It feels like it. It looks like it. I like the gothic atmosphere and art and everything. But I just couldn't get around the gameplay. I never made it to the first boss. I think I was close to the first boss based on what everyone was telling me, but I never made it there. So that's been my only experience with a Soulsborne game until Elden Ring, which has sucked quite a few hours out of my life, and I've been actually enjoying it. So something is very different between Bloodborne and Elden Ring.
Yeah, man, definitely. That's something I'm hearing a lot from people is, Elden Ring is kind of it's either their first game in this genre or their second game, and this is clicking with them a lot more than either what they had previously anticipated or whatever the previous game was that they had played. And so there's definitely something special about this particular game in this genre that seems to be pulling people in. I'm curious. So you had a very traumatic experience with Bloodborne. What convinced you to try Elden Ring?
Right.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Honestly, it was a couple of things. So I had never even heard of the game until Game Awards 2020, I think. Okay. I can't remember exactly, or it might have been 21. It wasn't too long ago, but I remember seeing a reveal and being like, what was that game? Let me write that down. Let me Google that. That looks amazing. And so I had it in the back of my mind. There's this game coming out. I don't know much about it. I didn't know when I saw that it was a Soulsborne game. I just thought this game looks incredible and I want to know more. And so then whenever it came out and I learned what it was and I started watching some people and hearing stuff about it and looking into it for myself, a lot of people like on my stream were saying, Doostyn, you would love this. You love Hollow Knight. You can play this. You can overcome these challenges and whatever. And they just kept saying, imagine a big open world with lots of bosses that you can go and do whatever you want. I was like, all right, you sold me on it. It looks amazing. The elevator pitch sounds great. Then you come up to the points in the game where you bang your head on the wall, but you get through. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was kind of what pushed me to play it. I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, man. Right on. I like how you ended that with, I'm glad I did. Cause man, we're going to get into that a little bit. My experience, I started with Bloodborne. That's kind of what introduced me to the whole genre. And I was in my group of friends. There was a group of 5 of us. I think we all got it that night when it released, and we all stayed up till like 3 or 4 in the morning playing it with our headsets on, and we were talking and reacting to different things. And and I was the only one that was kind of calm. Everybody else was raging and getting super angry while they were playing it. And I'm like, I'm digging this. This is cool. I spent 4 hours in this opening area just exploring it and trying to be, super stealthy and getting my teeth kicked in. But I like it. This is cool. And after I had finished it, I was like, crap, I want to play more of these. These are like, I hated the final boss of Bloodborne. It was brutal. It just really was difficult for me. But I was like, I want to play more. And from there, I played through the Dark Souls game in what I would call the Star Wars order, to where I did Dark Souls 2 first. I don't know why. But then I went and I did Dark Souls 1 after that. And then I did Dark Souls 3. And then I did Demon Souls. I think this was last year on the PS5 or 2 years ago now. And then I did Sekiro last August and was like, what the heck is this game? Why am I still playing this? Sekiro was one that was kind of like a huge wall for me because, Greg, kind of like you, man, I played it in the parry system. I could not get I couldn't get the timing right. It gave me traumatic flashbacks when I tried to play Guitar Hero on Expert. And I'm like, let's not do this. and so it took me a while to play it, but there was something, I don't know what it was about last summer, but when I picked up the controller and started playing it, it just clicked for me. And then I started playing through it, and it just, I reached this kind of flow with it to where I just, like, I wasn't like super amazing at it, but I kind of understood the parry system, the Makiri counters, and stringing those together using the different tools to kind of defeat certain bosses. And then next thing I know, August is flying by, and then I now have a new platinum trophy on my PlayStation. I'm like, oh, okay, that's new. But yeah, so then when Elden Ring was announced, I was like, heck yeah, more Dark Souls, give it to me, man. Like I love this series. The games they're tough. I don't think they're as impossible as people make them out to be, unless it's Sekiro, then that one's pretty accurate. But no, I've played a lot of these games. I've even played some of the spin-off games that other companies have done, like Code Vein. I tried the Surge a little bit, couldn't get into that. But I'm always open to trying some of those games out. I love these kinds of games, and they're so good. They're so good. Which kind of leads us into just talking about the game so far. What do we think? Kind of, let's talk about, how much time have we put into the game? What are our overall thoughts? And we'll just kind of let the conversation flow from there. So, Greg, let's kick it off. Actually, no, let's kick it off to Doostyn this time, because I'm curious to know kind of what more of I'm hesitant to call you a rookie, but someone who's a little bit newer to the genre thinks.
If you don't want to call me that, I will. I'm totally
okay. I'll let you say it.
Yeah. So, okay. I've really enjoyed my time with it. At first, okay, let me say this. There are things that I'm really enjoying, and there are things that are really frustrating to me. And neither one of those are the combat. The combat really, it isn't something that I love, but it's also not something that frustrates me. I can deal with it. I can deal with the challenge.
Okay.
I can overcome that eventually after dying a billion times, but I can deal with that and not get frustrated. So let's start with the good. The good, man, the game is beautiful. I love the world. I think, now that I think about like my experience between this and Bloodborne, I think the thing that really kept me coming back to Elden Ring is the fact that if I come up against a challenge I can't overcome, I can just run away. I can go do something else. I can get on my horse and just, I'm out of here. I'm not fighting that thing. But in Bloodborne, it was like, all right, here's a tiny hallway. Here's 4,000 enemies and you have a stick. Good luck. I'm like, all right, great. Thank you. No, I remember chat was just messing with me as soon as I got into the world and saw Tree Sentinel the first time. I was like, dude, what's that thing? They said, I don't know.
Oh, no.
Okay. And we're up there attacking the thing, and he just immediately smacks a mess out of me. And I'm like,
Amazing.
how am I supposed to overcome that thing? And I am happy to say that I have taken down Tree Sentinel now, and it felt so good.
Right on.
But so I'm not super far into the game. I have beaten Margit, Godric. Okay. I think those are the only two main story games that I've fought, or bosses that I've beaten. I've also beaten Tree Sentinel, Bloodhound Darwill, something like that.
The one that kind of like is pretty quick, that has a giant curved blade.
Yeah.
He's a fun one.
And he was fun. Once I went back to him, I fought him about 20 times and kept just getting wrecked. And then I went back several levels later, and after finding the Wolfman NPC guy that helps you with him. And nice. The whole fight was done in about 9 seconds. So that was nice. Yeah. It felt good. And then today on stream, I beat someone else. It was actually down just past that place with Darwill. Into some castle. I don't remember the name of it, but I had to go through the whole thing. There were the jellyfish at the bottom, and then you fight that boss.
Something beast. Yeah.
I can't remember his name either.
Surprisingly, I beat him my first try, which I couldn't believe, but I did.
Look at you go.
I know. I'm like, am I getting good or am I getting lucky? I don't know.
Nah, you're getting good. He's no slouch.
Yeah, he's getting good.
I'm starting to learn. I'm still real bad about panic rolling, though. I get in those panic rolls and it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that just kind of happens. I still do that a lot, and it messes with me. So it is what it is. I don't know if it ever really goes away.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what kind of style are you playing? Are you more of like a mage caster, more of a strength build, or a bit of both?
Yeah.
Kind of how are you playing this?
So I didn't really know there were options at the beginning. I saw the classes, but here's the negative. Here's the thing that frustrates me about this game. And apparently it's just the way it is, because this is what I keep getting told, but the game doesn't tell you anything about anything, like how the menu works. Nothing. I have struggled through menus, through goals, like what am I supposed to be doing? What does this stat do? What does that mean? So I'm asking constantly on stream. I'm like, okay, what is that? What does this mean? Oh, I got a thing. What is that thing? It doesn't tell me anything. So that's the only like frustration that I've had. But so because of that, I've had to figure out my own build and design and everything. So I went with the bandit class just because I liked the stats as best as I could make sense of them. And so my guy, he's like Neanderthal, crayon eater, no intelligence, and no faith either, which is ironic because I'm playing as a pastor, playing this game as a bandit. No faith. So I can't do any. I've got a couple spells. I can't cast any of them. I don't even know how magic works in this game. Someone was like, you need this one sword that I forget what it's like Lazuli Flint Grave, something like that, where you get it from I keep calling them Burger Kings. Those like guys that look just like the Burger King, you know, there's a whole castle full of them and they're casting magic all the time. You know what I'm talking about? The Burger Kings.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what they're called, but those guys, there's one of them that has this big blue glowing sword that also can cast spells. And so they were like, well, get that. Then you can fight, you get up in people's face and do combat, or you can cast spells. So I got it after slaying this one dude 1,000 times, so excited, and then see, I need this certain intelligence and or faith or something, and I don't have it because my guy's dumb as rocks and whatever. But so I've really been just enjoying getting in close. I love my Reduvia dagger. That is so fun to play with. And then I've been upgrading my Uchigatana, which I found.
Yes.
And so it's been fun. I like to get in there close and, do some damage, panic roll out of there, scream like a little girl. It's great.
Nice.
That's the best way to play it, man. That's the best way to play it. It's true. Greg, let's kick it over to you, man. Let's kind of go over like your experience with the game so far.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously earlier I made a pretty bold statement saying it hasn't quite topped Dark Souls 3 for me. I think it's somewhat because of some of the same, well, not really the same things that Doostyn's saying, but I've always enjoyed in Dark Souls the sort of progression that you make and going through and fighting these bosses and being able to kind of focus in on one area at a time and analyze the lore. And what's bothered me the most, I think, about it, and so I'm starting with the negative because that's the only negative that I have. What's bothered me the most about it is that it feels, because of the open world and because I'm jumping around from place to place constantly, it feels so disjointed that I don't really feel like I'm progressing through an intricately created world with that. I say this, I'll qualify this in a second, but it doesn't feel like I'm going through this intricately created world that has bosses that are more powerful than the previous bosses, or bosses that are related in the story in this way to another boss. And I know they are in Elden Ring, but it's harder to tell those things because, like, I went and I started and I killed Margit, and then I went and I killed Godric, obviously. And then I just kind of wandered, and I went through Caelid and found places, and I went over here and found Raya Lucaria, and eventually I stumbled across Raya Lucaria's academy and fought Renala, I think her name is.
Yeah.
And so I beat her, and then it was like, okay, well, I've killed 2 of them. I think that was something that I was supposed to do, and so I had to go back and like talk to the people and figure out exactly what it was again. And it feels. And I understand. I've been playing Souls games for ages. I understand that you're supposed to analyze the items. You're supposed to really listen to what people are saying. You don't have a journal. You have to actually remember things, like a real human being.
Oh, that's my problem.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't read anything. Okay.
So anyway, all those things are really important. And so I understand that. But even knowing that, I feel like there are times where I'm like, that was so long ago because I've been bouncing over here. I've played 20 hours since I talked to that person. And so there's just a little bit of disjointedness to me that I'm like, I just feel like I'm in this huge sandbox. And don't get me wrong, this sandbox is incredible. It's so well designed, and everything about it is just amazing. All the bosses, for the most part, are pretty good, although I do want to come back to that. But because of that factor, I'm like, I just don't feel as connected to the game as I did to Dark Souls 3. I felt like with Dark Souls 3, I was really progressing. Like there was actually, I was having an effect on this world. And I went, if I'm going back through old places, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this place. Now it's trivial. And I can do that too now with Limgrave, but with fast travel, I don't need to. And I don't know. Like it just feels a little disjointed to me at times. So that's the only thing that I have. Well, that's one of 2 things that I have. That's a minor criticism of this game. The other thing is that some of the bosses feel a little uninspired to me. Okay. Having played Dark Souls 3, and honestly, there are so few bosses in that game that are a miss. Like almost every single one of them is just a hit. They're great bosses. I'll walk into some of these mini boss fights, and I'm like, really? That's the boss of this little dungeon? Even if they're little mini dungeons, I'm like, that's what we're okay. And I'll kill them pretty quickly and walk out and be like, that was almost a waste of time because for whatever reason. And so there are moments in the game that are like that where I just don't feel the payoff. The beauty of the Dark Souls franchise is that you're struggling so much, and you go through this huge area and you get to the boss and he kills you like 15, 20 times. And then you get to him again, you finally beat him, and you get that huge feeling of satisfaction, right? And you get this massive chunk of souls and you're like, yes, okay, I can level up with this thing. with a lot of these bosses now, I'm like, all right, I'm going through, this is a new place. I'm excited to finally find this new area that I hadn't seen before. And I walk in, and because of the disjointedness, I'm maybe over leveled or something. I don't know, or maybe it's just not as difficult, or maybe because there's so much in this game, it's not quite as intricately crafted. I'm like not as surprised by things, or there's not. It just feels a little uninspired, I guess, at times. And then I'll walk into the boss. I'm like, okay, again, this is just not the most interesting thing to me. whereas every moment of Dark Souls 3 has you on your toes. So I don't know. I think that's just me. I understand that it's kind of a criticism that's particular to me, but I don't know. I still love it. It's still a 10 to me. I would definitely not say that it's any lower than that, but those are my kind of nitpicky criticisms of the game. Things I've loved about it, though, are that it blows builds and equipment out of the water, man. Some of the stuff that you can do with the items and the weapons that you get in this game are absolutely incredible. The way that you can kind of pull together new builds around certain themes. Even they've added some new things, like this whole magma idea, something I'm kind of trying to sort of experiment with now with my character. And so there's all sorts of different things that you can do. The dragon stuff is far and above anything that they had in Dark Souls 3, and it's really entertaining to use some of the dragon abilities. Things like that are really cool, and it does a really good job. And the main story bosses are fantastic. They're so good. I've not encountered one that has not been just a beautiful boss fight and really deadly too. So those have been a lot of fun. And then just to answer your other question, you asked Doostyn ahead of time, what build have I been running? My tradition when I start a Dark Souls game is I always do a strength faith build, like a paladin style build. And so I started off with Confessor and just did the sword and board thing for a little bit until I finally killed Tree Sentinel myself and grabbed his halberd, and I was working with that for a long time. And then this is another one of those things that I love about Elden Ring, and this is where it maybe excels over Dark Souls 3 a little bit. As I'm wandering around and I'm engaging in these quest lines, I come to Volcano Manor. Again, spoilers. I come to Volcano Manor, and they're like, "Look, you do this, then you're." And I've not actually seen the payoff of all this yet, so I'm not sure what it will lead to. But it's like, if you do this, you're betraying your allegiance to the Two Fingers, right? And I've been playing this character as like a paladin, the strength faith paladin guy. So okay, well, I'm using like lightning strikes and all these things that are kind of Two Fingers themed. And so, I do that. I tend to role play my characters, whatever I do. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go for this and do it anyway. And as soon as I did, something triggered in my brain. I was like, I should change my build. And so it's still strength faith, but now I'm using like fire spells, and I'm using a curved great sword that does fire damage instead of holy. And so I'm doing all these different things where it thematically looks different, and the whole build play style is completely different. But I didn't have to change my stats at all or anything like that. And so all those different things that you can do are really incredible. And I think that it's the kind of game that will grow on me even more over time, because I'm the kind of guy who likes to do challenge runs and certain builds and things like that. And it's going to be really easy, and there's going to be just an infinite amount of them for this game as opposed to Dark Souls 3.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned with that there about how, you changed your character, you changed the theme of them since you're doing the Volcano Manor side quest, and you use more fire spells and you haven't seen the payoff just yet. Trust me, the boss that's waiting for you at the end of that, you get something very, very cool that will actually go with the current build that you're working on right now. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with what you get from him.
Sweet.
You also might have nightmares from how he looks. He's very nightmarishly designed. So it's cool to kind of sit here and listen to how you both are experiencing the game in different regards, and some of the things that you're pointing out that are hits or misses with you. Just very briefly, I've personally finished the game. I have 93 hours locked in on my character on Xbox, and I bought the game on PS5 because I was under the impression that, throwing him under the bus a little bit here, but I was under the impression that I would get to play with Sound of the Rain that we had on the show here a couple episodes ago. And I checked in with him like a few weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I just got the horse. I'm like, dude, you barely started the game. I was like, I'm just gonna keep playing. And so I'm 30 hours in on my second character on PS5. I played two different builds. The first one I tried to recreate kind of like my Pyromancer build from Dark Souls 3, and then wound up becoming a Paladin and then switching to this Scorching Slayer type thing that uses fire and uses this gargoyle twin blade sort of thing. And it's catered more to a fast kind of play style, while also stun locking the enemies if you use that fire attack a couple times. So it was a lot of fun. because of how it was built, it kind of trivialized the final boss, especially when you use the mimic tier, because then we're both just spamming the fire attack, it's stunning him, we're stabbing him, and then we're doing it again. It still took me a while because the final boss is both incredible looking, but also incredibly painful to fight. But it still took me a lot shorter of a time than what I thought it would fighting those bosses. But then on the second one, my second character is more of a Moonveil samurai. And dear listeners know this from listening to the last episode. I talked about Fextra Life a lot. Both have been using both their wiki to find items, to kit out my character with different builds, or to try different things out with my builds, and then following their different build guides I have on YouTube. So again, links to those will be in this episode's show notes as well, if you want to check those out. And it's a lot of fun. One of the things I want to talk about for sure, and you both had kind of brought this up a little bit, is that, previous Dark Souls games have been somewhat of a linear experience. And so I guess before I go any further, I'm just going to say, I love the game. Some of the things we're going to get into here about some of the things I didn't like. And I agree with Greg that some of the bosses do feel kind of like, uninspired. To me, anytime you fought more than one boss at one time, I'm like, I hate this. Like, just give me the one-on-one. That's what I want. That's what I'm here for. Anytime you throw in someone else, I'm like, screw this. I am thankful that the Ash system is in place in this one, though, because then I can just clone myself or bring in a pack of wolves, and that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. But I would still prefer them just not exist in the game at all. Those are my least favorite fights, along with anything that is 3 to 4 times my size. Looking at you, Fire Giant, you stupid. Oh, I hate Fire Giant.
3 to 4.
Do what?
3 to 4. I think Fire Giant's like 50 times your size in that game.
I guess that's not accurate. Math's not my strong suit, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
But something I did notice about this game, is that in previous Dark Souls games, Sekiro, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, all those, it is more linear. The games they're kind of open to a certain degree, but it's not, you can't really consider it a open world, so to speak. It's all the areas tend to be connected, but it is kind of more linear in its approach and in its design. It does tend to funnel you through the story stuff in a way that is a lot more noticeable than what it is here in Elden Ring because in Elden Ring, sure, you can pull up your map and look at the sites of grace and see the trails of light going off from them that give you an idea of where to go, but it's not the same as it funneling you in the past games. And to compound this problem even more is the fact that Dark Souls, or just the games in general, are notorious for not really telling you a whole lot of stuff. It's like what Greg said. You have to pay attention to what everybody says. You have to read item descriptions. You have to not even just talk to NPCs, but exhaust their dialogue, like talk to them multiple times until they start repeating themselves. And then, smacking walls to see if they disappear and things like that. And Greg, this might be a question more for you, but I don't think some of the traditional stuff that Dark Souls games are known for translate well to an open world type of Dark Souls, if that makes sense. I don't even know what to really say, but do you kind of agree with that maybe they should have changed some things to kind of help with that a little bit? Or
so I think, and I've been thinking about this a little bit with the way that they've designed the whole map. It's really good, and that you can just wander around and try to find new areas and things like that. But I think the best part about it is that they didn't just throw out the sort of traditional, for lack of a better word, like dungeon style areas that Dark Souls 3 had. That was a big criticism with Breath of the Wild. After a long time, Breath of the Wild, masterpiece of a game, but the one complaint that I can think of that people really had, other than weapons breaking left, right, and center, is that the dungeons, or the great beasts, I think they're called divine beasts, don't really feel like good classic Zelda dungeons, and people wanted more of those. And I agree with that. That's a big deal because that's Zelda at its core. And to be fair, Dark Souls is just Zelda with more gothicness, harder combat. But yeah, so as you think about it, you can get into those areas. Like one of my favorite parts so far of Elden Ring has been moving from the open world, getting into that fight with Margit, and then walking into Stormvale Keep, I think it's called.
Yeah,
I can't remember any names. So that's another thing that's frustrated me, is like some stuff's just not super memorable. But Stormvale Keep is a Dark Souls 3 style dungeon, like linear area within this open world, and it's great. It's really well designed. Raya Lucaria is the same way. The academy there, as you walk into it, it just feels like you're in this very linear area within, like it's kind of couched within this open world, and so it's the best part of the game to me is finding those, and the in between stuff. It leaves a little bit to be desired from me. But you know, at the same, and the other problem with it too is that there's not a whole lot of like really cool stuff out on the open world area. You know, I'm expecting to go around a corner and just find in a corner somewhere like a great axe or some kind of weapon that, you know, is really unique, and they're just not there. They're not. I mean, you can find runes all over the place, and you can find ashes of war all over the place, obviously, but you're not finding a ton of just really, really neat weapons and equipment and things like that unless you're in those linear areas. So to me, it's like, if the game it would be worse for it, don't get me wrong, but if the game had removed the open world and just went through all of these little areas that they've created, it would be nearly as good, because those are the shining points of the game anyway. But again, a lot of that open world part, it is pretty fun to go and see, you know, running around and see a lot of like the infighting and things that happen. So yeah, I mean, to get back to your original question there, I do think that the linear things that Dark Souls does, and that it does well, it's not so much that it doesn't transfer to the open world, it's just that they focused it into these little pockets of the game that are really good, and then the rest of it's just, you know, it's pretty good, as opposed to great like those parts.
Yeah, and you definitely kind of see that as you're playing through the game and you go through the different areas. You see that kind of, to a degree, it's almost like you feel like you're playing two games, depending on where you're at. You know, the castle areas are definitely more tight, compact experiences that are more traditional Dark Souls, but then you get in the open world and it's more kind of, it depends on where you're at, really. Like some areas are definitely better than others. I think Caelid is definitely one where it's like, no matter where you go, it's crazy. It's cool. It's nightmarish. Kind of a pain to get through when you get to the swamp area with all the Scarlet Rot stuff, which I personally hate Scarlet Rot. I like using the dragon attack where I inflict it on others, but I hated having it. And so, yeah, but even still with that, I think what's been surprising, to me even, is watching other people play this game and react to it and have their different opinions or different experiences with the game, who never played the games before. And I see this all the time in TRG's Facebook group. People saying, you know, I'm 20 hours in, I have no idea what I'm doing, but this is a blast. You know, I just got to this boss and I got to this boss, and I'm like, man, it's crazy, because I remember when this game was coming out and I had a few friends message me like, hey, you know, I haven't played the other Dark Souls games, because they're hard, right? And I don't like hard games, but Elden Ring looks really good. Do you think I would like it? And I'm like, well, you know, I know you personally, you don't really like hard games. I have a feeling this game is going to be as hard as those others. So I don't know if it's really your jam, but seeing the game come out and so many people jumping into it, it's like, maybe I was wrong with this. And then even playing the game, and it gives you these ash systems or these spirit ashes to summon, especially the mimic tier, which is wildly broken at launch to where it was just super powerful. You know, you have things like that, and they kept the message system that kind of helps people out. It still seems like that, despite the traditional mechanics of Dark Souls games and how it, you know, I think some people probably called it, you know, it respects you as a gamer, and that might differ between two different types of gamers. It seems like new players are still able to jump into this game and kind of get a sense of what it's all about, get an idea of where to go, and still have a really good time, which I kind of want to kick this over to Doostyn here and just kind of see if he could elaborate a little bit more on your experience with playing this. Cause you had mentioned that, you're like, when you first started up, you didn't really know what the stats were, how they worked and all that stuff, which I think we've all been there playing these games. Like, what the heck do all these numbers mean? Like, do I need to be a mathematician to figure this out, or what is this?
High level resistance in Dark Souls 1. That's fine.
It's level resistance in Dark Souls 1. So, Doostyn, what has been like your experience with it? Because you mentioned some frustration with that, but yet it still sounds like you're having a good time. So maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So the game, it doesn't tell you anything outright, but it does leave just enough cookie crumbs there for you to find your way and to figure things out. And when I say just enough, I mean just barely enough, but they're there.
Yeah.
So like a couple of things that have been helpful for me as a new player, and especially in an open world like this, is like whenever you start it or find a site of grace, many of those will have kind of this light pointing in one direction on the map, showing you, hey, you should probably head this way. A lot of them don't, but many of them do. And so I've tried to follow those as best as I can when I find a site of grace that does have that light. And it's helped keep me engaged and like to not fall into that Breath of the Wild trap where it's just, okay, giant world, go do anything. But instead I'm like, okay, I don't know what's this direction, but I'm supposed to go this way. So I'm just going to go, and then I'll, come across some horrible thing like those giant lobsters I found that scared the mess out of me. Or something, some just bizarre thing that I'll come across. But it's keeping me grounded, giving me a sense of direction. So that's been big. And then a lot of the other things have really just been like trial and error, or specifically because I'm streaming it, chat will point things out to me that then they make sense once I hear it. But I guess didn't put 2 and 2 together, or in this case, it's not 2 and 2. It's like some, calculus equation or something that I'm supposed to figure out because it's very complicated. But no, as I've played more and like the game does a really good job of making progress. It feels good. It feels good to progress. It feels good to grow. It feels good to level up, to get a new weapon, to get new armor, even if it doesn't explain how it works or what it means or whatever, unless you study the description of every item. And because like, for example, I'm riding my horse around fighting Tree Sentinel last week, and the guy keeps killing my horse. They're like, why didn't you give him raisins? Why would I give him raisins? Where did I find raisins? Do I have raisins? What do raisins do? And they're like, you give them to him. It increases your horse's health. Well, great. That makes a lot of sense because that's what I feed horses in real life is raisins.
Wait. Hold up. You can increase the horse's health?
Apparently.
I don't think you can restore it. I don't think you can increase it.
Oh, because I was sitting there, it's like, I was sitting there, I was literally like, I've put 120 hours into this game, and you could increase the horse's health this entire time?
I think it's skill.
See, then that doesn't even make sense to me because I would like die, respawn, and before I even go fight, I'd give him like 3 raisins and then go fight, and he would still eat the raisins. Don't know why I didn't say, you can't eat these. His life is
same reason you can drink Estus while you're
don't get me started on that. I hate that. I do it all the time because I want to push that button to do things, and nope, that's the wrong button. But yeah, it does, like, it just barely has enough crumbs there to follow. But because progress feels good and because it gives you a few waypoints, a few flags, it's kept me engaged, kept me wanting to keep moving forward instead of feeling overwhelmed by both the world, the magnitude, and the difficulty. So it's done a very good job with that.
Cool. Right on. Well, something that kind of goes into that and kind of helps with that particular aspect of the game and helping new players and things of that nature is the message system that has been kind of a staple in a lot of these games that either give you a warning of a certain boss. It kind of will tell you, hey, try Scarlet Rot or try fire or something like that. Or the really zany ones that will say like, finger butt hole, it's like
No.
ones that I'm always just like, oh my gosh, guys. There's times where it is funny and it's like, okay, that's actually really well placed with where it is. There's other times I'm just like, okay, I feel like my students are playing this game now and they're just trolling me is what they're doing. But it's a great system that's always at least helped me out in the previous games. And I'm curious if either of you have left messages for other players or have used them yourself. Greg, let's kick it to you, man. Do you use the message system? Have you left messages for other people?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I see people who will immediately turn off online play whenever they start playing this game, which I understand the idea, like you don't want to be invaded. Fine.
Right.
And I don't care. Like I'm not going to gatekeep or anything by saying, oh, you should be dealing with the invasions. Whatever, that's fine. But I feel like big portions of this game are one of the main draws of this game. And even, Miyazaki has mentioned it in his in some interviews that he's done. Like, this is a communal game. We were playing through this sort of as a community, trying to get through this whole thing. And so there's nothing quite like going through a hallway and you just stop and click on the message and it's like left ahead. And then, okay. And so you walk in, you get your shield up and go to the left. And sure enough, there's a guy there. Okay, that's really helpful. Of course, then there's all the people trying to troll you into jumping off the edge, which happens all the time. I've not fallen for it yet, luckily. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to see people use the message system in creative ways, whether it be, like I said, those clever messages or otherwise. But definitely, I use them, and I think more people should be open to just as you're walking, just click on a message and see what it says real quick. Because a lot of times you're going to catch stuff that you would just have blown right by because of what people have put down. So yes, I use it for sure. I've written a few messages. Usually I'll post one whenever I see something like an ambush. Those are my favorite ones to be helpful with. But my favorite message that I've left, and the ones that I always seem to get the most, I think, I mean, you can't really tell, but I'll get an influx of your message was appraised messages whenever I leave these. Is anytime I see a staircase where there's like some space on either side of it, I'll walk all the way as far as I can past the staircase on the left and leave a message that says left. or praise the left and then praise the right on the other side. It's just a stupid thing. But inevitably people are looking for an item. They're going to the side of the thing and they're like, oh, there's a message over there. Maybe there's an item back. So they'll go click the message and it says praise the left. And they're like, wait, what? Okay, maybe I'll try the other side. Praise the right. Oh, okay, he's just trolling me. So something stupid like that. But yeah, I mean, I'll try to leave some occasionally because it's fun to play around with, especially anytime you have a limited selection of things that you can do. You can't just type in a message. That people have to get creative with the limited options that they're given. But yeah, I love the message system. I couldn't imagine Dark Souls without it, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely changes things up a little bit. And I want to get to Luke Strain's question here in a second, but that is one of my favorite things is just the creativity of the message system and seeing kind of what people can come up with those different things. And something I've noticed, just a quick little addendum to that, in previous Dark Souls games, you typically would want to play offline because you don't want to get invaded. But in this one, I've played it as long as I have, and I have never been invaded by another player unless I use the item that calls someone in or sends me over there. You'll get invaded by NPC invaders, of course. You can't really get around that. They're kind of locked to certain zones. But yeah, this has been the first game I'm like, I can play this entire game with the online thing on and not worry about getting invaded except for by NPC invaders that are usually fairly weak unless you're doing the Volcano Manor missions. Those ones are definitely more beefy. But yeah, if you're still playing this and you're like, man, I'm going to play offline all the time, definitely feel free to switch it to online and you'll be okay. Just watch out for the NPC invaders, of course, but those are set to designated areas. Now, Luke Strain, kind of since we're talking about messages here, he over on Patreon, we fielded some questions for some listener write-ins over there. So if you are supporting us over on Patreon and we put a thread up, you can always put your questions in over there. Luke Strain writes in and asks, what is your most upvoted message? Now, Gregor, has the praise the left, praise the right been your most upvoted messages in this game?
Yeah, definitely.
Right on. I'll get to mine here in a second because it's kind of a very, very goofy one. But Doostyn, have you been using the message system? Have you been leaving messages for other players? What's been your experience with that?
Dude, I don't even know how to leave a message. Because again, it doesn't tell me anything.
You got to read the item descriptions.
Apparently, that's what I need to do is just, all right, I'm going to take a day and just go through every item I have and read the descriptions. Because I don't know what anything is that I have. I'm picking up weird stuff and just stocking in my inventory. I'm sure I have plenty of the things, whatever it is, to write them. But no, I have not written any messages. I've enjoyed reading them and scratching my head at many of them. Like, what in the world is this talking about? Some of them make sense. Some of them I know they're just trolling, and then some are just bizarre. But I would second that. Even as a newcomer who I didn't know what was going on with all these messages everywhere. Yeah, turn on online. It's fun. You'll come across some fun and interesting things that'll make you smile or laugh on those messages.
Right on. Luke, to answer your question, my most upvoted message is if you go, I think this is only on Xbox, if you go to Roundtable Hold and go down the steps to kind of the where they store a lot of the stuff, there's like some tables there. There's this giant wooden structure back there that you can actually get behind. There's a message back there from me that says, I believe it just says message. And my character is just resting there, and it has like I think close to 70 or 80 reactions to it, mostly positive, thank goodness. That one is my most popular one, and then there's another one that is where is it? It's in Roundtable Hold again, where Fia is in front of the mirror where you go to change your character's looks, and it says monstrosity ahead in front of the mirror, and it points at the mirror, and so. Those two are my most reacted ones, and they're a lot of fun. I'm surprised that those get the amount of reactions that they do, because normally when I lay these things down, I'm like, no one's going to react to this, no one cares, right? But those two seem to be the popular ones over on Xbox, and then on PlayStation, I have one where Celis is Selly. She's the one that has like the stone head that you can learn magic moves from in one of the underground areas where there's the giant flower. If you go over to the crates near it and you roll through the crates, that also is just a message that I left that just says beware of the message. And that's all it is. And that one has gotten a lot of likes, which is, again, surprises me, but it's good. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that these games are known for are not just their set pieces, the locales, but their bosses, both in design, move set, some of the weapons you get afterwards. I still probably one of my favorite bosses in Dark Souls 3 is that first one that you fight, which is, I can't remember the name of it exactly. I know it's something Boreal Valley, something like that.
Vort of the Boreal Valley.
Part of that is because that's such a cool fight. The moveset's awesome, but also because you get this hammer from that fight.
Yeah.
It's a dope hammer. No joke, that hammer in Dark Souls 3 carried me all the way to the end of the game and into the DLC because it was so powerful, and it's so good. But even this game has some really cool bosses, whether they're main bosses, they're a mini boss or different things like that. And Cassie over on Patreon again writes in and wants to know what is our favorite enemy and boss and what is our least favorite enemy and boss. And I'm just going to say this. If this game got rid of those stupid, 20-foot tall crows and the dogs, I'd be okay with that. I hate those things. They're always killing me super fast. I hate them. But Doostyn, let's kick it off to you, man. What's your least favorite enemy and boss in this game, if there is a least favorite boss you have at the moment?
Okay, so least favorite enemy and least favorite boss. Maybe my least favorite enemy is those marionettes. Dude, first time I came across those things, those were so annoying because I was like, okay, I'll just ride on my horse, no big deal. They got 6 arms, start swinging like a maniac, which I can kind of deal with. But then the archer starts shooting arrows like a maniac with his 6 arms. How am I supposed to deal with this? And then there's a bunch of them running around. I don't even know how I got to that area. Went off on a beaten path, jumped off the side of a mountain, and I was like, all right, I'm in some new area. Maybe I'm going to find something cool. I'm not supposed to be here yet. Nope, just a bunch of 6-armed marionettes swinging swords everywhere at me. Oh, this is wonderful. Glad I came down here. Finally made it out of that area. So those things are super annoying, but I would also second the dogs with you. The dogs are, I can't stand them. And then my least favorite boss that I've fought so far, I'd probably say actually the one that I did today, whichever one that was that I was saying down by the jellyfish at the end of that castle. I forget the name of him, but
it's like Misbegotten Beast or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Like every boss that I've fought has taken so many attempts. And so I was like, okay, well, this first time I didn't even look at his name or anything. I was just like, all right, I'm sure I'll die in a couple seconds, and then I'll start learning this pattern. But I beat him the first try, and it really rings true what you were saying, Greg, that he was one of those uninspired ones to me. I was just like, okay, some wolf, lion, something. I don't even remember what he looked like now. It was just some beast that died pretty quickly, and that was it. And he's just a forgotten enemy. So not that he did anything bad or anything like that. It's very forgettable.
Yeah. Yeah. And to spoil this just a little bit, it's one that they reuse a couple of times throughout the game.
That
where it's
same
like,
boss?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's copy pasted a little bit.
I can't wait to forget about him again.
Yeah. Just going to erase them from memory as you erase them from the game.
Yeah.
Greg, what about you, man? What's some of the least favorite enemies you've encountered or least favorite boss?
So for least favorite, I don't know, anyone with a flipping crossbow drives me crazy. But so they're a little annoying. Enemies, I haven't found a specific enemy that I really dislike yet. For the most part, none of them bother me too much. Anything that this is in all games, like in Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1, they have those cursed frogs that spit cursed fog at you. Like those things drive me crazy because they're not hard to kill, but they spit out this. It's just they're mostly annoying to deal with. Anything that's annoying to deal with will not rank high on my tier list of enemies or whatever. But in this one, I haven't really found anything that's too obnoxious for me. So I'm not super worried about that. As far as bosses go, though, I have a story for you. I have raged one time in this game. One time so far. I beat Radon. Radon was not a problem. He was fun to fight against, even though I know he's frustrating and he's not the kind of style of boss that everyone enjoys. But like I was fine with that. I've been fine with all the main bosses and everything, and through some that have been very difficult. The one boss that has infuriated me was I don't even know what they're called, but they're like these crystal things where you don't do hardly any damage to them until you've done a certain amount of damage to them, and then after that you go nuts, right?
Yeah,
so
I know what you're talking about.
You go into one cave and there's 3 of them.
Yep.
One of them is casting at you, one of them is like spearing at you, and one of them is just trying to chase you down with a sword or something. And trying to deal with all 3 of them is insane by yourself. Yeah. The only reason that I actually ended up beating was by the grace of God, somebody dropped their summon there, and I brought them in, and they died really quickly, but it was just long enough for me to take down the mage, and then I can kind of kite everybody. But if it weren't for that, I would have been stuck there for ages, and I was just try after try. I only tried maybe 6 or 8 times. It wasn't that many tries, I suppose. But like it was just such a dumb boss and like 3 stupid easy things. Sorry, I was frustrated. That it should not have been that difficult, and it was. And so finally getting through that, the worst part about it was I got 5,000 souls or 5,000 runes from it, and that was it. And I was like, are you kidding me?
It's pretty cheap.
So I was so mad about that particular boss, and I never want to see those things again. Hopefully I don't have to. We'll see.
What's really fun is when you get one of them as a spirit ash, and you get to use that against other bosses, and it's like, okay, now you guys get to suffer like how I suffered. So that's good. Yeah, I remember that one. That one was rough. Thankfully, I had leveled up because I was using the pack of wolf spirit ash a ton, so I was leveling that thing up every chance I got. So when I fought those, it still took me a couple tries, but the wolves were kind of tanky at that point to where they could take some hits, and they did a really good job. But yeah, those enemies, I agree, they're dumb. You're supposed to use like blunt weapons or like physical spells against them, and that helps. But like when you got 3 of them coming at you, it's like, what are you supposed to do? You know?
Oh, I should also mention, I don't also like Renala very much, but it's not because I don't like her as a boss. Just really creepy, dude.
Okay.
All the singing and the weird, like, it's weird. It's very
yeah, the clones over that crawl on the ground and come at you. Yeah, it's pretty unsettling. It's funny how much this game has vibes of like Bloodborne versus the traditional Dark Souls that it had.
And Spider Hands. Sorry, now I'm thinking of all the bosses and all the enemies today. Spider Hands are horrible.
Yeah, terrifying.
Doostyn, you're gonna have fun with that.
Great. Look forward to that. Spider Hands. Okay.
I'll give you this tip. Be very careful where you walk. Like pay close attention to the ground and the walls because they might drop in on you or they might come out of the ground and grab you. It's bad. It's basically like
Wall Masters from Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Basically. I kind of already mentioned my least favorite boss, Fire Giant. I hated it. It was clunky. It was clunky to fight him. The camera wasn't great. The spectacle of it was dope. Don't get me wrong. Like you're fighting a giant on top of this mountain. It's cool looking. It's just the whole fight itself. I didn't care for. I did think it's funny how you can iframe through this move that he has where he takes his shield and he flips like an avalanche of snow at you. You can iframe through it by dismounting off Torrent. And I'm like, okay, as soon as I discovered that made this fight a little bit easier.
Oh, nice.
But it's still just, I wasn't a fan of it. But let's kind of switch up a little bit. Let's talk about some of our favorite bosses. And I kind of want to lead with one that's closer to the end of the game. But the one that is my standout as my favorite boss is Malekith the Black Blade, because you fight him and you start off the fight and you think it's going to be like this for the rest of the fight. It's like, all right, cool. This isn't too bad. It's like this wolf in a robe and he's just fighting, and it's just got a little dagger. It is what it is. But then you get his health down halfway and then all of a sudden he goes Super Saiyan. He's got this dope armor on. He's got a giant blade and it's more fast. It's more frenetic. And I'm like, this is fun. This is a blast fighting him. It's hard, but it's a blast. And plus the armor you get from it is, you look like a dragoon from Final Fantasy. So I'm like, of course I'm gonna rock this throughout the rest of the game. It's super cool. Malekith the Black Blade was one that just I wish I could fight again and again and again because it was just a really fun boss fight. But Doostyn, let's kick it over to you, man. I know you haven't played a lot of the game in comparison to some people that might be listening, but what's been one of your favorite bosses that you fought so far?
Man, so it's really hard for me to pick between Margit and Godric.
Okay.
Like Godric, I died about 30 times. I only know because we had the death counter running, but that is just, rookie numbers compared to how many times I died against Margit. I died so many times against that guy. But as difficult and frustrating as those were for someone brand new to the style of game, it never pushed me away. It just kept me coming back and like, okay, no, I got it. I can get this timing down. I can figure this out. Like Margit, for example, the range and the timing are so difficult to get used to with this huge character with that big staff. And like he rears back, and takes like 4 steps before he finally swings at you. And everything is just like, you see it coming, you panic, you start rolling, you realize, oops, shouldn't have done that. And by then he, takes you out in a couple of shots. But if I have to pick between the two, I think I'm going to go with Godric. Godric's his whole fight was just so fun. Like the second half, whenever he, puts that dragon arm thing on, spitting fire, and it just, man, it's such a spectacle, but it was a fun fight too. There were a few times where I would, get myself back into a position where I kind of just got stuck and couldn't really escape. But most of the time it felt more fair to me than Margit. Just felt like, all right, here we go. We got a battle going down. Margit, I probably died just as many times from him as I did from falling off the edge because I wasn't aware of my surroundings. I was like, well, there we go, dead immediately. Stupid. But I get it that he's like the ultimate gatekeeper, like literally and figuratively. He's literally guarding a big gate, but also if you don't get past this guy, if you don't figure out how to play this game, you are not going to progress. And it did a great job of teaching about your surroundings, about timing, about just everything. They're both very well done. But if I have to pick a favorite, I'm going Godric.
Yeah. Godric is definitely really cool. And I agree with the spectacle of it. As soon as he puts that dragon head on and he's shooting flames everywhere, it's like,
oh man,
dude, let's get some motocross bikes in here and get a show going. This is really cool.
Yeah.
But Greg, what about you, man? What's one of your favorite bosses?
I'm actually looking at a list of bosses right now, trying to figure out which one would be a favorite. And I mean, it's actually tempting to say Margit, and maybe Margot now. I've only fought him a couple of times. I haven't beaten him yet. He's kind of where I'm at right now. But that boss is just well designed. He's got the kind of humanoid frame that you like to have in a boss that you're fighting against. I don't know what it is about that, but there's something about just like seeing somebody and saying, okay, this is a dude with a spear, or this is a dude who's going to cast, I don't know, as opposed to like the gigantic spectacles bosses. I love them too, don't get me wrong, but I prefer the more humanoid bosses where it feels like you're fighting someone rather than something.
Right.
So I don't know what it is about that. But that being said, and despite a lot of the things that I've critiqued about the game so far, I think my favorite boss, just as far as pure, like, unadulterated, what on earth is going on, this is so much fun to do, has actually been Radahn.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I'm very alone in this, but Radahn was really fun. Just running around, like dodging everything, pulling together all the summons and getting them to go up and attack together. And it's very different fight. You're generally going to do the whole thing on horseback. Probably I did. And, that's not really my style with the game. But just there's something about this huge open field and this guy on a tiny little horse. Massive. Anyway, just the whole
funny
spectacle of the thing. And then at that halfway point when you find he like just jumps off and disappears, where'd he go? And you're trying to walk around, you go and try and check on Blythe because Blythe's cool. You see what's going on, and then suddenly just this meteor out of nowhere, he comes back and slams in. It's the coolest moment that I've experienced in the game so far. Just as far as, like I said, pure spectacle, it's really fun. So I actually really enjoyed that fight, even though I know a lot of people don't love it. But I would say just mechanically, like the best boss that I've played actually probably is just Margit. So he's such a good opener. He's such a perfect introductory boss, and like skill check for the game. And that's hard to do, and they do that so well. Eudix Gundyr and Dark Souls 3, probably the best opening boss fight ever. It's such a good introduction to everything that game is going to throw at you. And so Margit is very similar in that way. And I'm looking forward to beating Margot maybe after we finish up here tonight.
Definitely. So, something I want to add about Radahn, because Radahn was one that gave me a ton of issues when I first played the game, which I did beat him pre-patch, by the way. So I'm just saying, all y'all that's complaining about him now, you didn't know. you didn't see anything. Although they did kind of bring him back though with the recent patch, and he's got his groove back a little bit. I've noticed that with that fight, when I first played as my paladin, I hated it because of how hard it was. But then I noticed that when I went and beat him a few nights ago on my second character, and I have way more levels on this character than in what I did when I first tried to fight him. That both your build and your levels makes a huge difference, I think, in how much fun that fight is, because I had a blast the second time, partially because it was I knew what I was doing, but it's also because I just felt more capable this time around, and it was just more fun that time around. So and I think that kind of goes really for a lot of the bosses in this game. If you're really struggling with it, go level up, go check out some different dungeons or whatever, come back a little bit later, maybe respec your character to something that's maybe a little bit more substantial, and you'll have a better time at it. But kind of going along with favorite characters and stuff, this game has an eclectic cast of characters. Most, if not a good chunk of them, you could miss pretty easily. And this kind of leads into Brandon Brunacorsi's question over on Patreon. It says, what is your opinion of how quests are done in Elden Ring? I feel that they are severely hindered by the lack of any kind of logbook. I don't want any quest markers or HUD displays, but a simple logbook specifying who you talked to, what they said, would be extremely helpful without impacting the challenge of the quest. And I kind of want to ask you all that, because I think we might have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but that was something that even I found, I'm used to it from Dark Souls games, but there's a difference between those games and this game because of the open world. It's like, crap, where were the characters? Where did I talk to that person? What did he say? Where was I supposed to go? There's like 5 different bridges that I'm looking at on the map. Which one was I supposed to be at? And thankfully they patched it to where, you can see the NPCs on the map now and you can go there if you need to talk to them. But it's hard to remember everything because you're absorbing so much information from this game. If you're reading item descriptions and you're remembering what all the characters said and you're trying to remember different areas that are in the game, it's a lot to keep track of. So what do you think, guys? Do you think that this game probably should have came with some sort of logbook or something to kind of keep track of all that stuff? Because I know personally I would have appreciated that, especially as I was going through the witch Ranny side quests that I did, because there was so much stuff that you could do with that I'm like, okay, what was I supposed to do with this? Who was I supposed to talk to? What am I doing? And this is from someone who's played all the other games. I'm like, that was able to keep track of that stuff to a degree, but here it feels like it's just on a bigger scale. Greg, let's kick it off with you. Do you think this game should have came with a logbook to a degree with these characters?
Well, and this is what I mentioned earlier. Like, it wouldn't be a problem if the game weren't so disjointed and didn't encourage you so heavily to just explore for long periods of time. And it's good because all that exploration has payoffs. But when I talked to Ronnie and talked to Blythe, and he was like, meet me at the Mistwood, I forgot, after, because I wanted to keep going and exploring a little bit up there, and so I wandered around there for a little bit, got distracted by a couple of bosses, and then it was like, wait, where did he want to meet? And then there was some other issues with just the different ways in which you have to do particular things. I'm surprised that Doostyn found Blythe, because you have to get the snap gesture or whatever and go and find the guy in the right spot. And then, I don't know, like I noted that in my head and thought, I'm not even going to bother because I just want to keep going through the game. I tend to do most of that kind of stuff on a second run anyway. But I would love to have had a logbook personally. I understand though that like that's not the way that they think about these games. A lot of times they want you to have your handheld as little as possible in some ways, and so I actually have a journal that I'd written some things down in. And what's been cool about that is it actually brings me back to the old days when I was playing like Myst, and I was listening to audio cues and being like, okay, this means go this way, or all these different little cues that you have to follow to get through that game, or notes that you have to take, and they don't give you anything. You just have to get a sheet of paper out and do it. And so I've had to sort of bring up a notepad occasionally and just type in a couple of things. And okay, I need to go remind myself of this later. And I think that's fine, but it would be really helpful if they would at least front load you with that information and be like, hey, this game tells you a lot of stuff and we don't store it anywhere, so you got to remember. And if I knew that, I'd be like, all right, that's fine, but they don't tell you that, so it'd just be nice to see like Blythe said we would meet here, or this, whatever the case may be, this NPC said that you should meet him here, or this faction is available to you should you choose to join them by going to this place, and just leave those things there so that I can have like a list of things that if I want to go do them that I can, and I haven't just missed everything. But it does encourage subsequent playthroughs, so I don't know.
That's true. Doostyn, how about you, man? How do you feel being newer to the series? Do you wish you had a logbook for a lot of these quests?
Man, I don't know what the heck's going on in this game. I'm so lost. I don't know anything about what's happening, these quests. Admittedly, part of that is the fact that I'm streaming the majority of my playthrough of this game, and so I'll be distracted by chat and whatever, and I miss stuff that people are telling me anyway. But like you mentioned that one guy, Greg, and you're like, I don't know how Doostyn found that. I'll tell you exactly how I found him. It wasn't because of me. It was because I said, hey, there's this boss that I want to go back and fight. And I explained who it was. And everyone was like, oh, we know who you're talking about. You need to go find this wolf man. He's on a tower in a forest and you need to snap at him. I was like, okay, what forest, what tower, where is it? And how do I snap? You can snap?
Right.
And so they walked me through that. And then sure enough, there was a wolf man guy up there, and he helped me out, and that was great. But I never would have found that or realized that. I only know now because of one of the youth here at our church who I was talking to him about Elden Ring because he's loving it. He's put 100 hours or whatever in something crazy, and he keeps asking me my progress. And so I was telling him about that I fought Bloodhound Darrowwill, whatever, with the Wolfman. He was like, "Oh, dude, you got to go up to this on the top left of the map. There's these 3 towers. You got to go behind the left one, I think, and find someone because that's the Reyna something side quest or quest line or something like that." And I was like, okay, I don't know how I was supposed to know that either, but yeah, I would have definitely appreciated a notebook, a log, something. I mean, Bomber's notebook from Majora's Mask, I'd even settle for anything. Just give me something to keep track of this, because there's so much going on and so many people telling you so many things. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm right there with y'all. I wish there was just something to kind of make it a little more clear as to where it is you're supposed to go, and the stuff. I understand that Miyazaki is trying to make it to where you're an adult, you pay attention to everything, read things, remember this stuff, but the transition from a more linear type game to this, I think, really could have benefited from something like that, just to help that quite a bit. But who knows, maybe that's something that they'll add in at a later date, because they're always always listening to feedback. That's why they put in the NPC locations on the map, even because people were like, wait, where are these characters at? So that's been super cool to see. So who knows what the future of this game will look like. But with that being said, I think I'm just going to have this be part 1 because I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of Elden Ring. I was not kidding when I said online I needed 2 people to come on. And now as I'm sitting here talking about it and the time is coming to a close, I'm like, man, there is so much more to talk about with this game. So dear listeners, look out for a part 2 that I'm sure will be coming shortly within the coming months. Maybe after I finish my 3rd character, we'll see, because I'm not going to play anything else. Let's be honest. I just love this game so much. It's stupid good. But guys, before we kind of wrap up this episode, are there any closing thoughts that you want to add about the game? Would you recommend the game or anything like that? Doostyn, let's kick it off to you first.
Yeah, let me speak to any other maybe newbies to the franchise, to the Soulsborne genre, and let me give you my perspective and my recommendation. I would say if you're the kind of person who enjoys a challenge, who enjoys rising up to a challenge, I'd say go for it. It's a great game that it does enough to keep you invested, to keep you interested in progressing and moving forward and building your character up to getting stronger. It's one that, the challenge, it's real, it's there, but I don't think it's enough to deter anyone. It's one where, just like I was always told in Hollow Knight and how I share with other people whenever they struggle with, a hard boss, a Nightmare King Grim or something, I said, trust me, keep fighting. You will get better. And I'm learning that on this side of it now. I'm having to eat my own advice. The more I fight, the more I, try a boss over and over, whatever, I do get better. You will improve. It is hard. It is hard to adjust if you've never played one of these games. But if you enjoy the challenge, you will enjoy this game. It is very fun. The fighting is fun. The world is beautiful. It's fun to explore. The menus are awful and I hate them, but the game overall is very, very good.
Yeah, the menus are pretty rough. I'll admit. Too many tabs to go through.
Yeah.
But yeah, Greg, what about you?
I mean, yeah, I really do think this game is as close to a perfect game as you can get if you are the kind of person who enjoys, like Doostyn said, a challenge. There's nothing quite like Dark Souls. Even the games that try to mimic it. I've played Remnant, I've played The Surge, I've played several other games like Dark Souls. There's nothing quite like it, though, in terms of having a game that can just have your anxiety level like up to here constantly, whether that be I need to dodge this next attack of this boss or I die, or I'm working through an area and like where is the next point of grace? I'm running low on flasks. I'm not going to be able to make it through much more. If I come across another really strong enemy, I might have to lose all my souls. And that feeling of like just the gripping fear and anxiety of what's around the next corner, and yet pushing through that anyway. There's something cathartic about it. I don't know. I don't think there's any other word that I could use to describe Dark Souls or I keep saying Dark Souls, but Soulsborne games in general, and in particular Elden Ring, than cathartic. There's something just so satisfying about finding that next point of grace or landing that hit against that last hit against the boss. It's just there's no other feeling like it in all of gaming, I would say. It's that just the feeling of accomplishment that you get. So I mean, that's the kind of thing that should draw us in. There's a lot of things that people will look at this game, and it is intimidating. It has a reputation that it does for a reason. It is an intimidating franchise, and this game is no less intimidating. In fact, it might be more so just in the fact that there is so much. Yeah. But when you push through it and you actually take the time to get to that point in the skill curve where you know what you're doing at least, then things start to turn around. So it's definitely a game to invest in. It's a game that I have a feeling that subsequent playthroughs are going to be considerably more fun even than the first one, because I'll know where to go and I can skip the things that I know aren't really going to be beneficial for me, or the parts of the game that I didn't really enjoy, or the bosses that are just meh. I can go to the ones that I need to go to. I can enjoy that kind of doing it that way on my own. I don't have to 100% the game every time. I feel like I have to the first time. So I don't know. There's lots of things that I could say about it, but just it's a really great game. It definitely deserves all the credit that it's been given, and I hope that more people play it. I mean, not that there's not a ton of people playing it already.
Right. Yeah. To kind of echo that, I'm working on my second character right now, so I'm effectively playing through the game a second time, and like I am discovering things and characters and items and side quests and areas I thought I had explored pretty well my first time through. But man, this second playthrough is a lot more fun because I'm starting to connect the dots more with certain characters and running into surprise bosses in areas I didn't know they were even there. And I'm like, man, there's so much to this game. My only thing I'll end with this is that, something that I think people probably get wrong about this game and how they approach it is, I'm going to play this game on my own. And that's fine if you do. But in my opinion, part of the appeal, part of the draw to these games is the community aspect. And I'm not talking about just like summoning people in, but, if you don't know what something is, there's so many different people out there that are committed to helping you out with that stuff and helping you find out where you're supposed to go, or find an item for your build, or give you some tips on a boss. And one of my favorite, I've effectively used this site as my companion piece while playing this game the entire time. And I'm bringing it up again. We're not sponsored by them. I really love both their wiki and their YouTube channel, and that's Fextra Life. If you are struggling with trying to figure out, how do I level up my character? What am I supposed to be going for? They have so many words are hard. There's so many build videos on their YouTube channel that are great at just explaining, here's the points, here's what you should be leveling up, here's why you should be leveling them up for this particular class, here's the weapons you should probably use for this, but you can also use these other weapons. And then on the wiki, that's like, here's these items that are part of this build. And we have an interactive map that you can find them on the map, and it tells you how to get to them, if there's a boss tied to it, if there's an enemy. It's super, super helpful. If you're not using Fextra Life's wiki at the very least, I would highly encourage it. Links to that will be in the show notes, along with their YouTube channel for their build videos. They actually just organize their build videos by introduction builds, level 50 builds, level 100 builds, level 150 builds, which is their new one they're filling out. So you can have an idea of what you should be leveling, what weapons you should be looking for, how to upgrade them, and those kind of things. It's perfect for both new players and people who've been playing these games for a while now, like myself. Super, super awesome content over there at Fextra Life. Love their stuff. Now, as we kind of wrap up this episode, this is our second episode of the month, which means it is our patron thank you episode. As always, you can support us over on patreon.com, throw a couple bucks our way, and it gets you early uncut access to all of our episodes, behind the scenes episodes, bonus episodes, and more. So if you go over to patreon.com and lend your support over there, you can get some sweet, sweet perks, and it helps us to continue doing what we do here at the show. And those people are, for the month of April, Alex Castellanos, Boulder. I thought I was going to mess that one up. Boulder. Sounds like a character I met in Elden Ring, actually. Brandon Buonacorsi, Cassie, Chris Freeman, Christopher Commander, Daryl Tavares, David Henderson, David Matthews, Derek Smith, Jake Walker, Jeff Jackson Jr., Jimmy Changa, Jonathan Harrison, Josh Broccolo, Kiefer Winborn, Clay Brandon, Kokoro Daki, Luke Strain, Mark Kozlowski, Matt Edwards, Matthew White Chocolate McDougal, Matthew Millsap, Melvin Benson V, Micah Hendrick, Michael Toller, Mr. Butts, Nate McKeever, Paige Benson, Retro Rewind Podcast, Ryan1701E, Sam White, Savone Pena, Third Strongest Mole, Travis, Vincent U, Wesley Ray, Xavier Medina. Y'all, thank you so much for supporting us over on Patreon and allowing us to continue what we do and contributing questions to this episode. Now, before I let y'all go, some recos, some things that our dear listeners should check out this week. Greg, again, you are brand new to the show. Let's kick it over to you, man. What's something that our dear listeners should check out?
Yeah, well, I guess by the time this releases, it won't be the week of Easter anymore. But still, since it is at the time of recording, I'm going to go ahead and recommend this. This is the book of the year for me last year. I read a lot, obviously. If you're looking on the
what?
You can tell that
you
I read? So I love to read theological works. I love to be challenged, and I very, very rarely do the challenges actually push me in a direction that I didn't think that I held before, like a doctrinal view that I didn't think I had before. This book did that pretty well. I'd already been kind of leaning into the idea of the descent, and so hold on, buddy. Why don't you come back to me? Let me get my son out here.
Okay.
Why don't you go and go?
You're up, Doostyn.
All right. Yeah, so my recommendation, if you haven't seen it already, is Sonic 2. Dude, we went and watched Sonic 2 the other night with the kids. Man, I had just as much fun as they did. That was a great movie. Like, it was silly. It was fun. It was funny. But like, if you're a fan or you've been around, the games since childhood, it had so many Easter eggs, so many things where I was like, I couldn't share it with my kids on those because they don't know those references. They don't know that scene from Labyrinth Zone and Sonic 1 that was there for a split second on the screen. Like, they don't get those little references, but I was loving every minute of it, dude. I was eating it up. So like, whether you have kids or not, or you just want to watch it on your own, dude, it's a great movie. Like, I loved it. I had so much fun with it. And my daughter, my 11-year-old, she's our oldest. She's a big Sonic fan. She loves all the shows, the games. She's all in it, And so we had a couple of moments in there where we would realize what's coming before it happened. And I won't spoil anything, but we could see something coming, we both looked at each other and we'd say it and oh yeah, it's about to happen. Let's go. And so it was a very fun movie. It was fun and funny, but it also really kept us engaged. It was my 6-year-old. It was his first movie to go to in the movie theater. And
nice.
he's pretty, pretty wild, a little out there and kind of crazy. And I was like, I don't know how he's going to handle this. I know if he's watching a movie that he enjoys and he's engaged in at home, he does well with it. But movie theater, new setting, got, a Coke and popcorn and candy and watching a movie on a giant screen. I didn't know how he would handle it, but dude, he was fully invested, fully engaged. It kept his attention the whole time. And by the end, my kids were both literally jumping with their arms in the air and cheering. It was great.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. It's funny you bring that up because one of my students, he went and saw that earlier this week, and one of our posters, this was in digital art class, one of the assignments I gave him was to make a movie poster but in minimalist design, so just very basic, just take one thing from the movie, make that the poster. And he picked Sonic the Hedgehog too because he was just this movie was super good, and I'm like, all right, on, so wow. I need to go see it then. So
nice. Yeah, definitely do.
Good stuff. Let's kick it back over to Greg, man. What is your reco for the dear listeners.
Yeah, I actually just watched tonight, basically on your recommendation, Doostyn, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 with my kids, and they loved it. So we'll be seeing 2 here soon.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
For my recommendation, I read a lot, obviously. And so one of the things that I find doesn't happen very often when I'm reading is that a view that I've held for a long time it actually changes. And this book did that. This was my book of the year from last year. It's called Crooks, Moors, and Faerie. It's written by a man named Sam Renehan. And it's about the descent of Christ. And so we're recording this on Maundy Thursday, if you are a liturgical kind of person, but the week of Easter. And so one of the questions that I get asked a lot as a pastor is essentially what happened between the death of Christ and his resurrection. Where was Jesus' soul? And this is the question that this book is trying to answer. And so there are various viewpoints on that throughout history. Certain people just believe that it was just kind of in stasis, and there's all sorts of different theories on it. But the one of the most historical views is this idea of the harrowing of hell, and that Jesus actually goes down into Sheol to release the captives that are there in Abraham's bosom, and to declare his victory over death and over sin to the demons and to Satan himself, and to bind him. And so all of these things are kind of expounded in this, and it's a really cool book to read, especially if you've never even heard of this idea before. So it's something to look at. It gives you a whole new metaphysical perspective, and it's definitely a really good book that I recommend, especially at this time of year. I will say this: having a more robust doctrine of the descent of Christ after his death and before his resurrection has enriched like 100 other doctrines. I mean, just it's incredible. So it's definitely something that I highly recommend, even just researching a little bit. Matthew Emerson also has a book called He Descended to the Dead, which is another really good one. And so, and this isn't a crazy idea if you're looking at me and you're like, I've never heard of this before, and you sound like a Catholic or something. No, this is actually something that's been a long held tradition. It's in the Apostles' Creed. The phrase "He descended into hell" is in the Apostles' Creed, which is an ecumenical creed that all Christians have, endorsed over the years. And so I definitely would say it's not something crazy, but it's something that we should consider. And I think that it's worthy, and this book does a really good job of it. So again, Crooks, Moors, and Faerie by Samuel Renehan.
Right on. Well, dear listeners, my recos then are, by the time that this episode releases, I mean, of course, I already recommended Facts Your Life, so of course, check those out, and definitely check out Pastor Doostyn's content. Links to all that will be in the show notes, along with Gregg's as well. Be sure to go check them out both on social media and YouTube, Twitch, all the places that they are. But links, again, will be in your show notes. My reco is that by the time this episode releases to public feeds and even Patreon, we'll be able to check this out as well. The Batman, the 3-hour-long superhero movie that I've refused to go watch in a theater, because I'm not going to sit in a movie theater for 3 hours that I can't pause or something, because I don't want to miss anything, especially when it's Batman. It will be out on HBO Max on April 18th. So the day that this episode releases to Patreon listeners, and then a week later, it'll have been out for a week. So definitely go check that out. Let me know what your thoughts are. I don't know like I said, I haven't seen the movie. My students have seen it. They've talked about how awesome it is. And I'm like, that's surprising, because y'all can't pay attention in a 45-minute long class. I'm surprised you could pay attention to a 3-hour-long movie. But they said, well, Batman's a lot cooler than you. And I'm like, wow, touche. That hurts a little bit. But no, so they enjoyed it. So I'm sure it's worth checking out. So if you have HBO Max, definitely check it out there. But if not, I'm sure it'll be available to digital storefronts shortly after. So be sure to go check that out. But Gregg, Doostyn, thank you all again for joining me on this episode of The Reformed Gamers and talking about Elden Ring, or as much that we could talk about in the 2 hours that we recorded. There's still more to talk about.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for having us, man. This was fun.
Yeah, man. So So like I said, dear listeners, if you want to check out Doostyn and his journey through Elden Ring, hop on over to his Twitch. And then if you want to talk to Greg and some other folks in a cool Discord server, head on over to his Discord server. Like I said, links to everything will be in your show notes, so go check that out there. I already mentioned Patreon, so if you want to support us, head on over there. But if you want to connect with us more, get some extra content, you can go over to our website, thereformedgamers.com. Has links to all of our other stuff, our socials on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that jazz. Lots of cool stuff, lots of cool ways to connect with us, even our Discord server as well. So be sure to get connected with the content, or get connected to the community, as well as get connected to the content, but don't let the content be the only thing that you get connected to. Definitely get connected to the community and join the dear listeners, or as Skinner affectionately calls it, the Horde. You know, it's kind of a World of Warcraft reference there. But with that being said, dear listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode. And remember to be a deer, keep it locked here, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Reformed Gamers, or watching it if you watched it over on YouTube. You know, one of the perks that you get for supporting us over on patreon.com, at least at the $15 and above tier, is getting your name read at the end of every episode, kind of like having your name in the credits of a TV show or movie. And I want to shout those people out at the end of this episode here, and those people are David Matthews, Mr. Butts, and Wesley Ray. Hey, if you like this episode, consider sharing it with someone that you think would be interested in the topic or the intersection of video games and theology, and maybe even share it with someone at Chick-fil-A. I don't know, you do you. But if you like what we're doing here at TRG, why not hop on over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers and consider lending your support. You get things like early uncut access to all of our episodes, you get behind the scenes episodes, extra episodes, and more of TRG. So head on over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers to consider lending your support. Or at the very least, if you can't support us financially, at the very least, highly would encourage you to share this episode with some friends, family, or whoever you come across that would be interested in this topic, this kind of show. With that being said, thank you again for listening or watching, and I will see you in the next episode.